The palace doors groan on their hinges, a heavy, grinding sound that echoes against the vaulted stone. A man steps into the light of the inner sanctum. The room falls into an icy, suffocating silence. Heads bow, not in reverence, but in a desperate, rigid terror. Every advisor in the chamber freezes, eyes fixed on the floor, breath held tight in their chests. This is the leader who rules by isolation, building invisible walls between himself and those he commands. He demands absolute, unquestioning loyalty, while offering nothing but cold distance in return. He scans the rows of bowed heads, waiting for a tremor, a mistake, a sign of dissent. There is none. The air remains stagnant, heavy with the weight of unsaid words. History has seen this figure 1,000 times, in 1,000 different halls of power. It is a cycle of dominance that feeds on fear until the foundation cracks from within. Every empire built on such silence eventually collapses under its own hollow weight. The man walks forward, his footsteps the only sound in the vast, tomb-like space. He does not look back. He does not see the resentment hardening in the shadows. He only sees the obedience he has forced into existence. 5 centuries ago, the air in the Korean court tasted of iron and old blood. King Jeongjo ascended a throne, surrounded by the very men who had orchestrated his father's death. The factions were jagged, sharp, and ready to tear the government apart. Silence hung in the chamber, the kind that precedes a blade. Every advisor expected the purge. They waited for the order to drag the opposition from their seats. Instead, Jeongjo walked into the center of the council chamber. He sat directly between the warring factions. He did not reach for a weapon. He reached for a scroll. He issued a single, sharp decree. Tangpyeong! The word cut through the tension like a physical blow. He stripped away the titles of party affiliation. He reached into the ranks of his enemies, plucked a brilliant scholar, and placed him at the head of the treasury. He pulled a commoner from the shadows to oversee the military. He transformed his private quarters into the room of perfect balance, a space where the only currency was competence. The walls of hatred did not fall in a day, but they began to crack. By refusing to ask, "Whose side are you on?" and demanding, "What can you build?" he forced the court to look at the work, not the enemy. The cycle of vengeance stopped. A century earlier, the royal library was a tomb of parchment and ink. The air was thin, biting with the chill of a winter midnight. King Sejong moved through the rows of shelves, his boots making no sound on the stone floor. He stopped at a desk buried under a mountain of scrolls. Shin Suk-ju was there, his head slumped against the wood, his breathing shallow and ragged. The scholar had been working for days without rest, his hands stained dark with ink, his posture locked in a permanent, painful hunch. The weight of the kingdom's expectations pressed down on him, a burden that had long since surpassed the limits of human endurance. Sejong watched him for a long moment. He did not bark a command. He did not demand more labor. He reached out, unfastened the heavy fabric covering his own shoulders, and draped it over the sleeping man. The warmth of the material settled over the scholar, a sudden, unexpected shield against the biting cold. Sejong turned and walked away, his footsteps fading. This was the silent foundation of his reign. Trust was not a reward for results, but the very fuel that made them possible. He understood that a leader who gives grace gains loyalty. The grace shown in the library was merely the beginning. Sejong turned his focus toward the silent majority, the farmers, the laborers, and the people who lived outside the reach of the written word. He gathered his scholars and set a challenge that defied centuries of tradition. He demanded a writing system that a commoner could master in a single day. The room erupted in silent protest. The scholars argued that complexity was the mark of intelligence, that the existing scripts were the only path to truth. Sejong did not argue. He did not micromanage their brushstrokes or dictate the shape of the characters. He simply held the vision of the people before them and refused to let it go. He gave them the freedom to fail, to question, and to break the old rules of language. The scholars spent months in the quiet of their chambers. testing, discarding, and refining. They moved away from the rigid, heavy characters of the past and toward a logic built on the shape of the human mouth and the sound of the wind. When they finally presented the new system, it was not a monument to their own brilliance, but a tool for the people. Hangul was born. It was simple, precise, and revolutionary. Today, we look back at these leaders not for the fear they inspired, but for the greatness they unlocked in others. They did not build empires of silence, where voices were crushed beneath the weight of absolute control. They built legacies of light. They proved that the strongest leader is not the one who stands alone at the summit, but the one who descends to make everyone else in the room stronger. When the final scroll is read and the last decree is analyzed, the truth remains clear. True power is found in the people you lift up, not the ones you keep down. When the final scroll is read and the last decree is analyzed, the truth remains clear. True power is found in the people you lift up, not the ones you keep down. Their legacy is not in the stone they laid, but in the potential they set free.